Is this thing on, miss? It is Christmas time. I wanted to throw this in really quick because you know, miss, I am not much of a Christmas, music person.
Right.
And I'm coming home, and there's one Christmas song that I hate. I cannot stand it.
Santa Baby.
Yes. And they played it. I was enraged.
I didn't know if it was in that one or the other one. I want a hippopotamus for Christmas.
See, that one, whatever. Nobody's winning any awards for that one.
No?
But the Santa Baby one, I'm clenching the steering wheel in a fury.
You're so mad you can't even change the dial. You're just like, no.
How'd Jerry Clower put it? That carnal redneck blood started.
Oh, something start boiling up on the inside of me. No. I actually heard a song today while at the store, and I really, really loved it. It reminded me of the very first time we went to go see him. Ronnie Millsap.
Oh, man.
Was playing Christmas, and I was just like, I almost wanted to cry because I remember just how bad it was the last time we saw him.
Ain't that the
not
truth?
bad as in he performed bad, but it was more
kind of, yeah.
He's getting old, and he wasn't what he was the first time we went to go see him. It was actually tear jerking.
Well, the first time he wasn't great. I mean, the poor guys. Here's the thing.
We were in awe. That's why I think it was fantastic. But comparing the two, the second was like, oh my goodness, he's a corpse up there sitting, waving with his broken fingers. And it was pitiful. By
the way, we got LaDonna. Feel free to jump in here at any time.
We got we're just rambling.
LaDonna Covert's back tonight. Now we're on.
I'm glad to hear here.
Merry Christmas, people. It's almost here.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
You're not ready? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, man.
Now, why are we doing this episode? LaDonna, I think you're the one that approached me about this, right?
Yeah, here's the rules. Every time I say Natalie or Berean Holiness, you take a shot.
Okay.
Oh, Lord, no. I know better than that.
Where's the whiskey?
I will not
Let's go.
commit to anything like that. Jeez.
So if she says Natalie 7 times in a row?
No, because we already, what's our thing? Natalie, Berean Holiness, or Don Van Zant? We have to ring the bells.
Dr. Graham, too.
Graham. Yep, Dr. Graham.
Yep.
Are we adding Grace Story to that list, too?
Ooh, we should.
So the whole thing came about because I said, we're hearing about all these other people, but we don't know much about you. Maybe you need to be interviewed. And then you went and did the ding dang thing and stole my.
There was 2 episodes.
Which one are you talking about?
There were 2 episodes. The first one where I said why I left.
Uh-huh.
And then I forget what the next one was.
It was when the 4 of you guys were going to tell your stories and interview, you just kind of told who is Phil Sparks or whatever. And I'm going down through my list while I'm listening. And I'm like, well, there goes that question. There goes that question.
Well, and you were like, let's just do this, okay? Before you do any more podcasts and steal my questions.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah, it got to the point where after every episode, I would get a message from LaDonna.
She's like, stop it.
Yeah, literally. Word for word.
Yes.
So we decided to do, you came up with the idea. I think you told me, hold on, good Lord. There it is.
Yes.
So you came to me about this because we were having quite a bit of pushback, and we'd try to answer some of it, and then we'd get more pushback, and even sometimes we would get pushback on the episode that we tried to answer some.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
And I think it was your idea, LaDonna. The more you addressed
it, the more they flocked to it and wanted to rip you apart even more. And when you're better off just almost ignoring it. But since when do we ignore stuff like that? We're always, hold on. I'm the one that's always addressing it. And you're just like, Missy, leave them alone.
Well, I do the same because I do like to give it kind of due process. Right. I like to take it seriously. And sure. I think it was you, LaDonna, that said, what if somebody just asked you guys questions that they came up with?
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, then I said, would you do it?
Yeah.
And
all right.
said, yeah.
So we're letting her have the reins?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing is, I've offered to send you the questions ahead of time to kind of prep your answers, but you
No.
declined.
We said no.
Right.
Let's do this thing.
Yes.
All right. So my first question I've gotten from several people. I've seen it asked on around social media, but then other people have kind of asked me. So here goes the big one. Why does the Hillbilly broadcast exist? Grace Story Ministries has their mission statement in their opening montage. And if you were to do something like that, what would it say?
Mm-hmm.
Thank God we can edit out pauses.
Oh, yeah. No, I kind of like...
You go
like
first, Miss. Why do we exist?
Oh, boy. Okay. First, from like right off the top of my head, why we exist. For me, it's a way to be able to talk among friends and be able to like get pushback. Does that make sense? I like it when we have a very healthy debate and we talk among each other. My parents tell me I should have been a lawyer, but yeah.
That Rigsby side of you is very likes to argue.
Very, very strong. I like being able to talk about tough topics and among friends. And then that's one reason. Does that make sense?
Sure. You like discussion.
I like discussion. I really do. And secondly, I like it whenever our listeners have things that they want to talk about as well. And this kind of gives them a platform for us to be able to speak with the things that they are either unable to or afraid to say.
I see.
That's just my personal opinion on that. I don't know if does that make sense to everybody? LaDonna, does that make sense?
I think it makes sense to a point. I guess the question is, you said difficult topics. What are you wanting to talk about? A specific, like, okay, I used Grace Story. Their focus is mental health and the church. So what's your biggest goal in Hillbilly Broadcast that you want to, the tough topics that you want to address?
Some of the tough topics have to do with the brainwashing of the CHM. I always go back to that because I find myself even today still struggling with some like thoughts that have been implanted in my mind by someone in the CHM.
Oh yeah, 100%. Me too.
So it does kind of go back, not that our goal is for mental health, but I do want to address the horrible brainwashing that the CHM has done and has affected my life, my family's life.
So as Natalie, there's a shot for you.
Yay!
The holiness, the legalism, and her focus is that Grace Stories is mental health. So then is it safe to say that Hillbilly Broadcast is conservative holiness movement?
I don't think it started out like that, but it's definitely turned into it. I love tech and I love gear. Mm-hmm. And I also have always liked talk radio. Grew up listening to Rush Limbaugh and all that kind of stuff. Always loved it.
And we loved it talking. We loved debates. Yeah. It really started off as just being a fun time, getting together.
The CHM initially was going to be one episode.
It was.
To where we were looking for something to talk about. We were trying to do the whole topical thing of, what's in the news and let's do that. And,
right.
Whatever. I mean, that's all right, but there's tons of people doing that. And we were looking for an episode, and I said, hey guys, why don't we address how we feel about the CHM in an episode? Uh-huh. And we did it once, and then I think we wound up kind of circling back around to it again.
Well, and it kind of exploded too. Like we brought up.
Oh, it definitely got a lot more attention.
And everybody else, like I say everybody else, a lot of other people were commenting and saying, hey, thank you for talking about this. We thought we were alone in feeling this way. but you guys are actually like voicing everything that we've been feeling. Yet I guess you can say, in answer to LaDonna's question, the CHM is definitely a cornerstone to our conversations.
Yeah, and if now, to answer the second part of that question, if we had a mission statement,
right,
what would it say? Honestly, I enjoy especially difficult conversations.
Okay.
I love those.
Same.
Conversations like about racism and stuff like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we've had a few of those, not very many, like with Byron.
I think we should have more because but anyways, we're going down a rabbit trail.
Yes.
But I have a friend who's adopted 2 little boys. They're African-American boys. They're beautiful little ones. And I'm like, I so want to have a conversation with her about that because she's got a lot of flack. But anyways.
But it's kind of turned into this thing of, the CHM. There's nobody there. Well, at least when we started, there wasn't another podcast addressing it on a regular basis.
I think you said that there was one, but it was like no longer going or something like that. Yeah,
because I would try to find it. The CHM is this topic that it takes up a lot of my brain space.
It does. Because you're so programmed to think a certain way.
Yes.
That our response, if you were to drop everything, what was your response to it? I would bet you my next paycheck that it was programmed or fed by some type of CHM ideology.
Well, and I was leaving it too. So I had to answer these tough questions.
Right.
And still get to this day, I try to make sure that I still have the answers for those CHM questions, with standards and second worker grace and all that kind of stuff. So I seek out kind of the opposing viewpoint to see if I can defend against it or not.
Right. And another thing too is, I would say this is probably one of the reasons why we have this podcast, is why do we believe what we believe? This gives us a little bit of a space to be able to say, okay, why do I think it's okay for me to wear pants?
Mm-hmm.
And I can be able to speak how I feel about something, and we're able to talk about it. And what does the Bible say? And we're able to kind of pour over it and have a conversation about that. So this is one of those why we believe what we believe things for me.
Let me add to that real quick.
Sure.
So if there is a mission statement, especially when we're talking about the CHM, I think it would be to let people know that are in it or have left that you're not alone in questioning these teachings. And then I try to encourage them to think for yourself, do your own research. Mm-hmm. Don't just take what you hear from the pulpit.
MOG.
Yes, from the MOG. Don't just take that as gospel.
Right.
Truth never fears a challenge.
It's true.
So challenge that sucker.
So then I want to issue a challenge to you guys in Canaan and Mariah that you brainstorm and you come up with a mission statement that incorporates those things. I think it's awesome for your social platform for people to know, hey, this is kind of what I'm looking for, or maybe these people are somebody that I could reach out to and say, hey, I've been there and I need some help. And you guys are gathering resources all the time to point people in good directions. So it's going to segue me to my next question. What did it cost you to walk away from the CHM? Has it cost you family relationships? Has it cost you friendships? Has it cost you social interactions? Because for me personally, I have encountered people that I used to be social with, whatever, and this isn't a big town, but they no longer speak to me. That's not always the case, and thank God that it hasn't been across the board 100% of the time, but it has happened. And so I'm just wondering, because you've chosen to walk away and you've chosen to have a voice on the internet, what does it cost you?
So I had somebody tell me the other day, they said, Phil, what you guys are saying is brave. And I'm like, dude, and not at all. Because, now maybe more so on Canaan and Mariah's part, because they live in Indiana, in the heart of CHM country. I don't want to speak for them completely, but I think even as much as maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they used to go to the Christmas programs and stuff at UBC. They knew a lot of people up there's so many CHM people. You usually wind up, that's your job connections. You wind up working with them.
Yes.
All that. So for them, yeah, probably a little more brave. For me, it's not, because I had these questions while Dad and Pap, which would be my grandpa,
right,
while they were alive. I just kept most of these questions to myself because Mom was very much CHM at the time.
Yes, she was.
Dad very much was, and my grandpa very much was. Now, Pap and Dad have, they kicked a bucket. They're gone.
Right.
And Mom has, through some very slowly introduced conversations, she's left the CHM as well. So it's really not brave for me. So I would like to say, in a way, it really hasn't cost me a whole lot to do this, other than I do, as much as I like to think I don't, I think that people's opinions still do carry a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's always that thing of like, so you get somebody pushing back on you and you're like, all right, whatever they said, I have to justify,
right.
I have to defend against whatever it is that anybody says. But really for me, there's not a whole, I don't think there's a whole lot. What about you, Miss?
My family, I say this with love. My parents are still very much CHM. While they are not members of any group right now, they are definitely still CHM. And in the process of that, I do have some friends who are also CHM on Facebook. And I've kind of been going through and weeding out certain people.
So to clarify, are they only CHM on Facebook, or are they're in the CHM and they're friends with you on Facebook?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I just want to make sure you're just saying that it's not that they're just CHM on Facebook and they live how.
No. To answer yes or no, instead of just like making a big, huge explanation, I do feel like there has been a little bit that has been sacrificed coming from what I came from, because I have a lot of friends who were in the CHM who I know for sure do not support what I do.
Uh-huh.
One of my childhood friends who I thought was going to be a friend to the end, she doesn't support this.
She's not into it at all. Yeah.
No. I'm basically shunned when it comes to her.
And if I could say something else, LaDonna, that's why I'm actually very thankful for people like, in Gray Story agreed to come on.
Yes.
We just had Amateur Faith Night. They come on. They're not from the CHM tradition, and then when we had Natalie on, I'm actually very thankful for that, because it's kind of getting to the point where if you're a Christian and if you have any kind of ties to the holiness movement,
right,
it's not popular to talk to us.
No, it's not. Or
to to be perceived as supporting us in any way. So I really do appreciate everybody that comes on, because
how
it can cost you something.
Those storybooks, is it like Jeanette Oak or whatever Beverly Lewis, the shunning, like for sure, it is definitely a thing. The CHM shuns and encourages the lack of communication with those outside the movement.
Well, and to be fair, it's not just the CHM; it's the IFB, it's the the Pentecostal movement too. Because on that in the groups that I'm on Facebook, I see it. People are like freaking out right now, especially at the holidays, because their family members are not accepting them because they no longer attend a certain church or they don't dress a certain way. So, and I understand that, because I received letters from family members that, said we were going to hell and taking our children. So I understand that it does cost you something. Do you have friends inside the CHM that are still trying to get you to, quote unquote, come back home? You're a prodigal that needs to come back home. Do you have friends that are doing that?
I would say that Doug definitely. And I think he would be okay with me saying that.
So there's certain people that either fully support us, but they think we're sadly like mistaken and they want us to come back.
Yeah, there is some of that too.
But they're still our friends.
Yeah.
which I appreciate.
I do.
Really do.
I appreciate it.
Because this goes back to, is it Penn and Teller, that one guy? He said, if I know someone is like rushing towards hell and I don't do anything to stop them from going in that direction,
then do you really love them?
Do you really love them?
Right. I get it.
Because he was talking about how someone witnessed to him, and he's an atheist. He's a known atheist.
I haven't gotten it because of the podcast, but I do know that sometimes they can be overbearing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, like I said, Doug is not.
Right.
And some of these, I don't think.
In fact, everything you've told me, like, you really appreciate everything he's said.
He's cool. He's cool.
Yes,
he completely disagrees, but he's willing to hear me out, which I appreciate.
Which you don't get very much. Let me just say that. You don't get that very much in the CHM.
But there have been times, like at camp and all that. I remember when I was still in, there'd be this whole thing of like, I'm just really concerned about just this whole thing of, and they would leave you like, oh my Lord, I'm going to hell.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But I think there are some, to answer your question, LaDonna, I think there are some that would like to see us
for sure
come back to the quote fold.
So I listened to your podcast where you had the list of things that you wrote down that you heard preaching against. So I have a question. Since leaving the CHM and based on your recent list of things you heard preached as sin, how have you found balance in your freedoms? Or have you found balance?
I would say, yes, I have, but it was a bit of a journey.
Yeah.
I had some mistakes along the way. I think I had to learn that just because I could do something didn't mean I had to, and didn't mean that I necessarily knew how to.
Everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial?
Exactly right. Exactly right. I'm very careful now to just say that something is sin, whereas used to, Miss, we could pretty much, I could figure out a way to, that set of drums right there would be, because it's drums. but yeah, I feel that I have found balance, but it has been a journey, and I've made some mistakes along the way.
I would say that one of the biggest things I've done since leaving the CHM, and it wasn't makeup, it wasn't cutting my hair, it was wearing pants. I think that was the biggest thing for me. And I actually had someone message me and be like, you liked how a skirt made you feel ladylike and it made you feel classy. And I was like, yes, I did say that. But I also found that statement very arrogant to a point, because I was trying to say, like, for me, it was just like, it was prideful of me. I liked how a skirt made me look. And it was definitely a prideful statement I made while I was still wearing skirts.
So you changed your mind, which
I apologized
is hard for a lot of people too.
And I apologized to her, and I said, I am very sorry for that statement that I made, because I made it seem like those who don't wear pants, or those that do wear pants, are not trying to look classy or dressy or anything like that. And it really kind of hit me in the face just how prideful of a statement I had made. And so for me, wearing pants has been a big step. I didn't immediately start wearing pants. We left the CHM and I was wearing skirts for how long?
Oh, it was years afterwards.
And I ordered a pair, and they were like maternity pants. And I loved them because I had like a long tunic thing. Like even now I wear stuff over the top of it that covers my butt, so I'm covered. And if I wear like a shorter shirt, not that anybody else has to do what I do, I just like to make sure that
it's just
I'm
the balance
covered.
That you found. Yeah.
Yes. And it's more hippie style. Anybody that knows me knows that I love bell bottoms. So I have found that balance for me to still be modest, but still partake of the evil.
Jeez. What a way to put it.
Well, it's a CHM version of it. I'm doing the most terrible thing possible. I'm wearing men's clothing.
According to them, yes.
Yeah.
So you answered my next question of what does your walk with the Lord look like now? Since you don't have a list, how do you walk in holiness? So you kind of started to answer that. How do you walk in holiness?
I reserve the right to change my opinions at any time because I am still working out a lot of these opinions.
Yeah.
Me and another CHM buddy of mine, we have some really in-depth conversations where we bounce stuff off each other. I've referenced him many times, and he usually gives me a call, or I will call him, vice versa. He's coming. He's like,
right.
I heard you mention me.
Yeah.
And we do talk about how there are some things we just don't have decided yet. We don't know yet.
Right.
And I think for him, the second work is one of those things. He's like, I don't know definitely yet. He's like, and I may not know for years. He's like, I'm still looking into this. But for me, I think it's kind of God progressively shows me areas. And I feel like I even had one of those kind of quote revelations today where it's just like, Phil, this is not right. Like this attitude you had or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You need to work on that. And so, Lord, I'm sorry, please help me with this. And so I feel like that just, I continually try, I guess is what I feel like it is. As far as what does my walk look like with God? I mean, there's a lot of things that I do now that I would have condemned somebody to hell for a few years ago. I mean, it's no secret. I like cigars, and everybody pretty much knows how we feel about alcohol. Things like those were absolute no-nos. We couldn't even associate with anyone.
You couldn't even go down the alcohol aisle
Absolutely
at Walmart.
Not.
Even if the pop aisle was on the other side. I remember feeling bad because I walked down the aisle.
Wait, it was that bad for you?
One side. That's just how I felt.
Okay.
That was back when I was still a part of the CHM movement. I felt bad just walking down the beer aisle because there was beer on one side and there was pop on the other side. Because I was worried someone else would see me down there and be like, oh, she's down the pop aisle.
There was always that too.
With alcohol. Yeah. Yep. You cared what people thought.
I will say this, though. I feel that my walk with God is, there are times that I feel more disgusted with myself because I realize the sin that I struggle with more so now than when I was CHM, because we used to just call stuff mistakes.
Right.
And now I realize that, there's sin in the way I responded to that person or something like that. But I also feel more at rest knowing that Christ is enough.
Right.
And I'm just going to keep trying my best. And I don't mean to say that neither, because we'd always hear, here I go responding to the CHM voice in my head. We would always hear this thing of like the sinning religion just gives you license to sin, and people can just go do whatever they want. You can
just go hog wild.
I'm not trying to say that at all.
Right.
When I say try your best, I absolutely mean that, and then just trust that Christ is enough.
Well, what you said about being more disgusted with yourself, it reminds me of that great Calvinist John Piper. The greater, the closer you get to the light of Christ, the more it reveals the sin. And, the closer you to get to the Lord, the more you see your need for him, basically. And one of the elders at our church says you need to be about the business of killing sin every day. It is a battle, a daily battle. And I think we had this conversation earlier today, you and I, in the group chat, about just you're born and then you start growing and you keep growing until you die. And it is a daily walk with the Lord to submit, is what I'm about to do going to be pleasing to you? And if it's not, Lord, convict me, let me know. And it's not what someone else has said, it's what the Holy Spirit speaks to you.
Yes.
One of the best things for me as I'm learning more about holiness, it's definitely, you have the Holy Spirit showing you, like, you probably shouldn't be doing this, or you probably shouldn't have had that attitude with that, or you kind of said something that was a little bit, it was a little wrong. It led to the wrong impression or something like that. Like, we have that guidance that we need just to live a holy life, but it's not about us or about any works that I can do. And since leaving the CHM, I've really been growing and learning who God really is, in that no matter what I do, God is going to love me. And I remember being younger thinking that God's going to be like, oh, you did this, and I don't love you anymore. Like that thought of he's not going to love me anymore. But you cannot really sit there and tell me that you actually can picture God telling you, imagine God saying, I don't love you anymore. Can you picture God saying that? And I remember hearing a really good...
I used to.
But I don't feel that way now. I don't feel that at all. I feel like God, no matter what, he's always going to be chasing me, and he's always going to be loving me and trying to make me the better person that he meant for me to be. And I don't remember feeling that when I was in the CHM. I feel that now his love is going to be constant.
One of the things that was very clear to me early on that made me just, it jarred my thinking, because I used to feel that way. I was a complete disappointment to God, and not going to love me, was that I had a child, I had a son, and he was always now going to be my son. He was always going to be my son, no matter what he did, no matter where he went, no matter what he got into or out of or whatever. He was always going to be my son, and he could never stop being my child. And a lady said that to me. She said, LaDonna, you have been born into the family of God. You are God's child. You can never not be his child. He is always going to pursue you with his love, just like you would pursue your son and desire the best for him and love him. And you may be frustrated, and he may have done something that has kind of put a breach in your relationship, but you're pursuing to fix that relationship with him and figure out what it is you have to do to get that closeness back. And that's the same thing that God does with us. But I never knew that. I was not taught that when I was growing up. It was, God wrote your name on the board with a chalk, and you messed up, your name's off the board. And then you got to go back over and start again and get your name on the board. And then he's just waiting to take your name off the list.
Yes.
And that is not who he is. And so I totally get what you're saying, Missy. He loves us even more than we love our own children, which,
Yes,
as new, sure, you can't even imagine that loves you more than you love Anderson.
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah. Like, we're willing to give up the most important things in life. Like, just if he were to run out in the street, we would jump out there and do the exact same thing.
I listened to it real quick. I listened to a lot of CHM sermons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was listening to one today. It was an old one. And I almost found it sad how it is portrayed that you better be careful.
Yep.
Because something could, unawares, knock you out of relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
To where God all of a sudden is like, he's going to hell.
Right.
And you might be trying, but you better be careful. Yep. Something
could come in the way.
I can remember that feeling like, oh my Lord. Oh wow.
The constant fear.
Yeah. What if there could be something missing I don't know about that might all of a sudden, boom, all of a sudden now I'm going to hell.
Yeah.
And it's such a sad picture of God's grace that's painted to people. But
it almost takes away God's mercy.
Yes, it does.
Like the mercy is completely gone. His grace. There's nothing there.
Well, you talked about your friends being concerned, saying, I'm concerned for you. I'm worried about you. I find myself being worried about my friends inside the CHM.
Yes.
Yeah.
That there's more. I know that there is freedom, and there's rest because I see them working themselves to death. There's rest in Christ. And so I want to continually say, hey, can we have a conversation about what I've found? And can I share that with you? Can I tell you about my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ?
Yes.
Okay, next question. Did you and Melissa have theological struggles in your marriage before you got out?
Well, I know we had that trouble that we talked about dating.
With divorce and remarriage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Has there been anything?
I don't think so.
I mean, there was the stuff like where I'd be nervous because like we'd go to Texas
Alcohol
Roadhouse or something.
Yep. We went to Texas Roadhouse.
I was afraid somebody would see me there.
I don't think we really did, because we would talk about things and we would be like, okay, what does the Bible say about this? And if we disagreed about it, we were like, okay, but what about this? And we'd be like, we would really talk about it with each other. So
I honestly feel that whole thing, as much as it makes me look like a fool, which I was, the whole thing about divorce and remarriage, when I say that it started a domino effect, it honestly did.
Yeah.
And I feel like that actually helped me and you, because then when we did get married, we were both kind of on this path of why.
Yeah.
And I need to figure out why. And so I think we kind of went down that path together, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because we would ask, why does the Bible say it's wrong to cut your hair? Or why does the Bible say it's wrong? And we were like, wait, the Bible doesn't say it's wrong to cut your hair. And we would actually do research together. And as people in the church would be like, well, the Bible says this, this, and this. And we're like, yeah, that's great. The Bible does say that. But it doesn't say it's wrong to wear jewelry. It doesn't say it's wrong for certain things. So we were kind of like, if anything, they were proving the point that we were trying to make. So we were able to kind of discover it together and be like, yeah, the Bible's very clear. It says, don't be a drunk.
I think there were some times that maybe I'd figured it out in my head, but emotionally I was still tied to something.
Right. I'm
trying to think exactly what an example of that. I would be like, okay, I don't really think there's anything wrong with this. But then when we would go, I'm trying to think of an example.
Yeah, I know. We get along very well.
We do.
And when we don't, we don't.
Ask Kanan.
Oh, yeah. Kanan's been there. He's been like, oh, boy. Yeah.
Was Missy reluctant to leaving the CHM, or were you the more reluctant one? Or were either one of you reluctant? Because I know in my story, my husband fought it tooth and toenail, and like right now, I need to go out there and tell him to turn down his R.C. Sproul sermon he's listening to.
Oh, wow. I would say I'm probably more reluctant than you are.
See, I thought the exact opposite.
Really? You thought you were more?
I did.
Because I was still going to BMC camp.
Well, but we did our leaving after we got married.
Right.
That's right. You did still go to BMC camp.
I know. I'm thinking in my head, there's certain things.
Because I refused to go.
You would not go. And I was trying to go. I'm thinking, it's like going to Clinton camp. For me, in my head, it's like you going to Clinton camp. So I was like, yeah, it'd be awesome to bring Phil with me. And I can introduce him to my friends who I know are definitely still in the CHM, but they're not in the CHM because they're holding their cell phones out the window so they can have internet, or wearing fireman's pants when they go to. Yeah. There's all these things that I was like, okay, I want to go do this. And Phil was like, absolutely not. He would not go with me at all.
I remember because I went on Cheat Mountain camping.
Yeah.
Because you were going to Cherrytown, right? Up in PA.
Yep.
The BMC camp. And I was like, I was terrified of BMC from early on.
I seriously had the funnest time, though. I was myself. I did not have to put on a face. Granted, I wore a lot of the CHM kind of clothes, but it was for me, it was more out of respect because I was with my parents, and I love my parents. And if it means that it makes them happy for me to put on a skirt, I will put on a skirt if we're going to go to something there. Not that they're forcing me, but I do it out of respect.
How did you guys find a church? Did you visit multiple places?
Yes.
We stayed in what was a quote CHM church.
Yeah.
The church in Webster, which was always given the label of
black
liberal.
Sheep.
Yeah, it was the black sheep of the Holiness Movement. It was liberal.
Right.
Quote liberal. It was kind of one of those, it was in a denomination and that's about it. Most of the attenders, they couldn't tell you what the second word was. I had no idea.
The attenders loved Jesus, and they were so willing to support each other, and they really were like a family. We
stayed there for a while until some other issues. It wasn't CHM related. We decided it was time for us to move on. And then we looked for, and even before we settled down to go to that church, we looked for a little while. We'd try this one, try that one. Then afterwards, we would try the First Baptist Church in Philippine, and
you went to a Baptist church down here.
Yeah, went to the Southern Baptist Church, and everybody was.
You went to a Pentecostal church in Belington. One that, or further down the road. I know you went to 3 or 4 different ones.
I did. The Southern Baptist, most United Methodists around here, the average age is 95. The Southern Baptist Church, the average age is 97. And I was like, no. We tried the First Baptist for a while. Still like them, but actually, I like that preacher and stuff there. John Villers, I think his name is. Mm-hmm. And then we went to Haven of Hope, which is where we attend now.
Yes.
I think there probably are theological differences, and Howard might very well listen to this. Howard Swick, the pastor, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. He comes from a similar background. He came from the Nazarene church, but kind of after the holiness movement had already left the CH. Right. But there was still enough of that flavor. He knows kind of what we came from.
Yeah, exactly.
A little more Pentecostally than I care for. And it took me some convincing.
Well, and let me say this though too. That is something that we've had to almost get adjusted to, because I will say this, for you definitely have to get used to it. But growing up in Africa, the singing, the dancing, like certain, not that they get up and start waltzing everywhere, but like they actually. Can
we be clear though? This is not like a tongues church. Like,
right.
We're not talking like Benny Hinn, nothing like that.
No.
It's just, I think they believe in it, but like nobody really does it.
They're very charismatic. They're very, very, like, you know how we go to a football game and we just sit there and we're just like, yeah, go Mountaineers.
Yeah.
Okay. That's exactly how we are in church. We get excited about
Which was
Jesus,
an adjustment.
Which I love.
Mm-hmm. And I've also taken the approach that I don't have to agree 100%.
Absolutely.
With a church or with the pastor or whatever to be able to realize that they are brothers and sisters in Christ and I'm here to worship with them.
Because we will have differences. Like, it's normal to have differences.
Right.
If we were the exact same, like even snowflakes aren't the same. I mentioned this to my dad. Like, if people start ripping us apart because, we do go to a church where some people do believe in tongues, but they're not like, They do it personally, and that's their own personal walk with God. I personally don't do it.
I ain't sold on it. I'll just put that out there. I'm not sold on it, but I can disagree with them.
My dad, who is a definite CHM person, he said the reason why the CHM church does not want to address where Paul talked about in the Bible is because they do not understand it. Paul, obviously, there was a reason Paul brought it up in the Bible and talked about it. But it was like the least of the gifts of the Holy Spirit if you do speak in tongues. So that's another conversation completely.
It is.
But yes.
Well, the thing to remember is there are essentials and there are non-essentials. And the essentials are important.
Yes.
And to agree on the essentials, what you feel about God and the virgin birth and, the word and things like that. Anything other than that, if it's not essential to salvation, it's okay. You can believe that and I can not believe that and we can still be good.
LaDonna, that's something that whenever I was in, we would look at everybody that was more strict than us. Mm-hmm. We looked at that as the non-essentials. But everybody that was less strict than us, that was the essentials.
Right.
So, like, even with some of the Mennonites, because they dress stricter and stuff, we'd be like, good people. We can we'll worship with them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If they come to our camp. But then everybody that
if they come to ours, that's the thing.
But everybody that was more liberal, we're like, nope, that's essential. So we didn't know, like, this whole thing of, essential and non-essential was just, had no understanding of it.
Right. Okay. Everybody good? I want to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 questions left.
Okay.
But they're big ones.
Oh boy. Okay.
So I found it interesting that you talked about dating in your podcast at such a young age, because I think you said you were like 15 when that girl was listening to that awful, sinful bluegrass music.
Yeah.
You were younger than 15 when you first started with her.
I started, I was 14, I think. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it reminds me of a previous conversation that we had about the CHM sexualizing everything. So now that you're a father, how do you think you'll talk to your son about relationships when he's a young man?
Oh, boy. Could you have underestimated a little bit more, LaDonna, when you said these were big questions?
Oh, yes. Yeah, when she said big, she meant massive.
Oh, man.
She meant huge. Okay. This is nothing again for my parents that are listening. I love you guys and I appreciate everything you guys taught us. But for me, looking back, I wish there had been more communication and instruction on relationships as a teenager. All I got was, you can't do it till you're 18. And
had no idea what it was.
Yeah, what does it mean? Because Because and in the world, doing it means like you're going all the way. Like your guys are having sex. And that's not it at all.
They were just talking about dating and
They
stuff.
were just meeting dating. So for me, I look like, and he can't date till he's like 65, just so we're clear on that. But when he gets old enough to, I really hope that he is able to trust us enough to have the open conversation that you and I are able to have. Be like, Mom, I like this girl. Can you like talk to me about like what makes a nice date or something like that we're able to have that communication. Because like right now, he's all just like goobly gook.
He actually asked me that the other day.
Stop it. But he knows that we're there for him. And I want him to continue to know that as he gets older, but I want him to be able to trust us enough to talk to us.
I plan on being much more plain with him.
Yes.
And again, I want to put that caveat in there too. Mom did a fantastic job.
Yes.
She was, we were all in the CHM and we worked with what we had.
Yes.
And Mom did a great job. I think I've talked about that some before.
Right.
But you did not say the word sex. Mm-hmm. That word was not mentioned. Mm-hmm. So therefore, because there was the stigma, I think that, was it David Eicher that said, we need to make it more acceptable to discuss it. Maybe it was John Hopkins too.
Yeah.
We need to discuss these things more.
Yes.
And not make it this thing of like, oh, just shut up because that's dirty talk. And then therefore you're just stumbling around the dark. I want to be much more plain with him. I think my dad tried to have the talk with me one time. He got about 3 sentences into it, veered off, and that was it.
And that was like when we were dating, right?
Oh, it was much before then.
Oh, was it?
And
okay.
That was it. That was. I learned about the way that things function from a 7th grader in health class. He turned around and he's.
Yes.
We get to learn about here. And he proceeded to tell me because I had no idea. But yeah, just all of that. I think I'll be more plain with him.
Even right now though, I find it funny, and I'm going to say this, and you can take it out. But you're having a hard time saying the word sex. You're having a hard time saying that.
I guess so. It is weird.
I noticed that.
Yeah, I guess be more open with him. I don't know how else to put it. I don't know. Man, there's so many other like levels to that answer, but
yeah.
Can I weigh in a little bit?
Yeah, go
here? Ahead. Okay. So your mom and I are the same age.
Okay.
So I'm gonna play your mom here.
Go ahead.
I have 2 boys. I have 2, for lack of a better word, healthy American boys. And that I am married to a healthy American man. Great interest in this subject. But I would just say the best way to fix this issue within the CHM is to change our way of thinking towards each other, as looking at each other as brothers and sisters in Christ, and teaching your children from a very young age that these little girls are your family, and you treat them with respect, but you can be friends. And it's not if a boy and a girl are hanging out, it's not a little boyfriend girlfriend thing. Diffuse that situation right up front. And if you have a church where there's lots of kids, invite all of the kids to the birthday party so they get used to being around girls. Mm-hmm. And it's not a weird, awkward thing. And then talking to them about marriage as a covenant relationship rather than a sexual contract. That changed everything for us when we first came to the church we're at. Their weddings are incredible because they celebrate covenant, and it's not just getting married and you're going on the honeymoon and woohoo, right. But this is a covenant relationship as the symbol of Christ and his church, and it is celebrated as the gospel meeting creation and coming together in this beautiful picture, this beautiful display. And it changes the focus of it becoming something spiritual. And then we can have conversations with our kids about, you build a relationship, a friendship. And then when your heart is a little bit more mature, because I know I had a boyfriend. I was kissing a guy in the girls' dorm at Clinton Camp, and I was 13. He was 18.
Wow.
So, I didn't grow up with this either. But I would just say we got to make it normal to talk about, yes, your body has feelings and your body's going through changes, and there are safeguards that we can put in place. And if you're struggling, come to us and talk about, hey, I really, I get nervous around this girl. What's that about? It didn't happen, 2 months ago, but now it does.
Right.
But to change this thing of any time spent together automatically becomes a sexual relationship. No, it doesn't. It just is a friendship between brothers and sisters in Christ. And it's just something that I feel like it needs to, because sex is a very adult issue, and we are putting adult issues on children's shoulders that they don't have any way to carry that.
Right.
It's too much to expect them to understand what happens when this act takes place. So I was like, you talked about dating at a really young age, and I get it. I do. I get it. I mean, my husband, I don't know, maybe you can edit this out.
Yeah, we get it. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah,
my.
it's just how they've, I don't know where it came from, but the Bible colleges are still perpetuating this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you're exactly right.
So, which leads me into another question about the Bible colleges.
Uh-huh.
So I saw somebody on your broadcast Facebook page left a comment, which, have you turned off comments on that page?
No, we haven't.
No.
Okay, because I couldn't find it the other day. But they asked you why you bother to talk about the Bible college standards if you don't consider yourself CHM. So what is your motivation for pointing them out? Here's the thing, is it mockery? Is it poking fun? Is it exposing them? Is it your background in the Allegheny Wesleyan? Because you said you went to an AWC church.
I did. I grew up in one of those, yes. So
address the question of, why do you bother to talk about Bible colleges if you don't consider yourself CHM?
It's a very good question. You mind if I go first?
No, go ahead.
I feel that the rules at Bible colleges are a symptom and an indicator of the rules of the broader CHM.
Right.
They won't say that. They'll say, well, that's just that college. Yeah, but find me one holiness preacher that will say that this rule is not, that will preach something drastically different from the handbook of a CHM college. I know because I was there. I heard the sermons. They're very similar. The CHM college handbooks is just a spot where you can find them saying the quiet part out loud.
Right.
Now, as far as addressing it, I feel that if we talk about something like that, it's then easier for us to show other people you weren't crazy in remembering some of this stuff. Because I've looked back on some of the sermons I heard and the movement, the side of the movement that I grew up in. It's hard to find them documented these days.
Right.
Because they still don't use live stream. And you'll begin to question yourself, like, did I actually hear that?
Mm-hmm. And
so I feel that actually throwing out the rules, the stuff that we find, has this effect of, oh, that's right. I wasn't crazy. There it is.
Right.
And then we could say, okay, here's why I think that this is wrong. Now they will say, well, just don't go to that college. And then they'll ignore the fact that there's college recruiters, and pretty much every evangelist that comes to your church or camp will say every young person should attend Bible college.
Mm-hmm.
And so then for you to feel like that you are spiritually in a good place, you have to go, and then you have to put up with these rules that are supposedly supposed to make you closer to God. And on my end, I call BS, and that's why I think we talk. What about you?
For me, it's more the reason why I like to talk about it is because I actually went to Bible school. So for me, it's like reliving the trauma. I'm going to use the word. And because I've experienced it, and because my dad also experienced it, but his experience was like way different because they were able to do pranks and all the fun stuff that they went with. My dad will tell you right now, the Bible Missionary Church of what it was back when he was a part of it in the 80s is completely different than what it was for me whenever I joined in 2007. Times are changing and it's not for the better. And the handbooks will show that when it comes to like their stupid rules.
Yes.
And how they tailor things. And I talked about this today on a post where they were, why are you guys like bringing this stuff up and you're misinterpreting things? And I said, well, first of all, the vagueness of these rules lets you be able to support your crazy ideologies that are not biblical. And so that's what we're doing. We talk about it because it is not biblical and we're calling it out. So mockery, it kind of goes along with it because we kind of joke around.
I looked up the definition of mockery the other day because we were getting so accused of it.
Right.
Mockery is this, according to what I read, is this thing where you're making fun of someone with the purpose of putting them down to where other people look at them and are like, you fool.
Yeah.
You know, just like making them like with bad intentions. That's not what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Now, making fun, poking some fun, all day long, every day. Absolutely. Because that's kind of the culture we're used to.
Right.
I mean,
it's true.
We've said it before. Me and Kanan do that all. He calls me fat. I call him whatever.
Yeah.
Anything I could possibly think of. And it's just what we do. Now, do I want somebody to look at Kanan and be like, you fat little... No.
You don't want them to...
We're poking fun. Now...
Look at him and say, you fool. Because in fact, you don't. Right.
Rodney Loper video that's been going around lately.
Yes.
Some people's been upset about it.
Yeah, address that.
To me, it's like, okay, he said some dumb things. And for those that aren't familiar, he said the F word.
Which he 100% stands
in a
behind.
Sermon, okay? That's fine. And I get the point he was trying to make. He's like, don't say these words. And then he said the words. And it's at a CHM college. It was during chapel. And to me, it's like, okay, dude, I'm going to laugh at that because that was obviously...
a bad choice of words.
Bad choice of words. Does that mean that I want everybody to look at Rodney Loper and be like, look at this, just look at you. Look at you, imbecile. No.
Yeah, no.
But I'm going to get some laughs out of it. It's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and like I posted on their thing and said, hindsight is always 20/20.
Yes, it is.
So yeah.
Does that answer it, LaDonna?
So you wouldn't say that you're mocking them?
No.
What about exposing?
Yes.
Yes, 100%.
For sure.
I'm fine with that. Penview wants you to sign a contract that you will follow these rules.
Some of them you actually have to send in an application, and so you have to pay for it too. So I'm sorry, I'm not paying.
Which is weird because these people believe that they have the correct version of Christianity.
Yes.
And so they do this weird thing where they try to say, well, just don't come. But then they say, you really need to come here.
They try to push
They do this weird thing. Okay. When it's somebody like us, they'll say, well, just don't go. But then to every young person, like, you really need to come. You need to really come over here. You can meet a spouse.
If you're following God, you're going to go ahead.
And then when you got somebody that is young and impressionable,
right,
they're going to go and then they're going to get hounded on for all these stupid, unbiblical rules, and they're going to feel bad. Case in point, Nicole Munson, I think she did a fantastic job of just explaining like
how pressured you feel.
You're just pressured.
I find it interesting. Did you read a comment on the page?
Something about how
like he was surprised, like that's how much he
yes, I did read that. He
followed for that, and
yes,
yeah, I'm gonna have to find that. But it was a very good comment.
So exposure, yeah, I believe it's unbiblical. The stuff that they want people to do, and then put it out there in the light. Let them defend it, as far as I'm concerned. And let me say one more thing. I'll stop then. Let people know exactly what they're getting into if they do decide to go there.
So one of the things that I have observed, and my brother and I have talked about looking over these pages of the handbooks that you've posted, is that it sets up the kids for failure. It automatically puts you at a place of them, they're distrusting you.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming here at a quote unquote adult. Most of the kids are going to college. They're probably 18, but they don't trust you to make the right decision. They don't trust your relationship with the Lord for you to make the choices that you need to make to live a holy life. I understand. I understand 100% that an organization needs to have some guidelines and some boundaries. My son is in the Army. There's certain things he has to wear.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain places that he has to put medals or patches or whatever. There's protocol, and the Bible colleges are military institutions, bottom line. But what they're doing is they're on my son's off time. He's free to do what he wants, but they're automatically telling you, I don't trust you. And you don't have enough light, or you don't have the sense that you need to figure this out. And so we're going to tell you every single thing you can do, from plucking your eyebrows to wearing pantyhose.
Yep.
And so it sets you up for failure. It sets you up for feeling inferior, and it just gets you started down a road of going to the altar. And my husband told me a story of one of his brothers. They all attended Bible college. And they had, I think he said it was Gerald Buston there in chapel. And he preached over a great sermon. Lots of kids, lots of students went to the altar. And one of the professors went to one of my brother-in-laws and knelt down into his ear. And he said, "This is embarrassing. All of these students are at the altar, and it makes us look bad. You need to get up."
Oh, my Lord.
Wow.
So my brother-in-law did. He got up and he went back to his seat, because the professor was embarrassed that the students were all at the altar, because it made them look bad, like they weren't spiritual. And that's the kind of thing, Nicole Munson talked about that with her experience. Did he do it this time? Can we move on, or whatever? It's all of this outward stuff, and the inward suffers. And it makes you crazy, and nobody's doing anything about the inside. We're all so focused on the outside.
Yep. If I could say something here, I think that this is one of the main flaws of the Christian perfection, second work of grace type of doctrine, because it makes anybody that then goes to that altar, well, obviously they're having issues with something. They shouldn't be. The second work should be enough.
Right.
Whereas I feel the approach I've come to, and I feel that the more biblical approach is, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I got things I'm trying to work through. I always will. I will never stop trying, but I've got things I'm trying to get better at.
Mm-hmm.
So don't bat your eye if you see me, talking to God, being like, I am sorry for what I just said, or something like that. Forgive me and help me to have. But they don't have that option, because that shows you're doing something. There's something wrong with the process.
Right.
You didn't get the second work. You don't have the Christian perfection.
Well,
what are you doing down here? And these are at the Bible college. These are our future CHM leaders. Yeah, this looks bad. When it's like, no, these are normal people. They're going to have struggles. These people just admit it instead of covering it up.
Right.
And never going to the altar, never asking somebody to pray for them because they have an issue.
Because I know I've gone down to our altar because I really felt like I was going through a hard time spiritually, and I felt like I could get closer to God there.
Yes.
Not that Not that God isn't able to reach me where I'm at, like where I'm sitting at the bench. For me, it was more...
Because the altar is a modern contraption. It is.
It is. And but I almost felt like it was me exercising faith. You know how they always talk about that at the CHM? Like you need to exercise faith and step out there. And like they use the story of the prodigal son. He had to make his way back home. For me, I don't know why.
There's something about the altar.
There's something about the altar where I feel like I can go down there and I can just pour my heart out to God.
You're more comfortable with it. It's
what I've been raised with.
Yes.
So for me, I'm like, I love the altar because I now see it as my friend. But whenever you're in the CHM movement, those that went there, it was because I was backslidden.
I can remember as a teenager going to the altar. I don't remember what it was for. Maybe to pray for somebody else that I was really burdened about.
Right.
And people coming up to pray around you, and of course you can hear them. And they're like, Lord, just really help him to surrender it all. And I'm like, dude, what? I'm not here for that.
Yeah.
But their automatic assumption was, just let him settle it, Lord.
Yeah. they have in their mind the reason why you're there.
Yeah. It's something you've done. You've done something wrong.
One person's saying, hang on, brother, and the other one's, let go, brother.
It's so true.
Exactly.
It's so true.
I'm with Phil on the whole altar thing. I've seen it too many times of being like a gossip gathering session. They want to hear, the gooey stories, or I've been the recipient of a good blessing out at the altar. And, when you have someone, you're trying to ask for forgiveness and then they just tell you exactly why they cannot forgive you. So I am more the one who's at the end of the service, we have elders in the front and the back. If you would like them to pray with you about something or gather your small group people around you, that kind of thing. That's more my, you all are walking with me and I trust you, but this whole open altar, come down, see what you can hear, then go talk about it.
Right.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm out on that.
Okay. One last question, and it's going to be a fun one.
Okay.
Somebody texted me and they heard I was going to do this. They said, what in the heck does Phil do for a living?
What do you do for a living, Ben?
I sew electrical parts.
It's true.
I work for a commercial and industrial electric supply house, like supplying automation stuff to coal mines, all that kind of stuff. It's very non-glamorous, and it's nothing that any kid, if you ask them what they want to do when they grow up, they will never say they want to do what I do. but it pays
you
the
enjoy
bills.
it.
It's a good cut. Yeah. Yep. That's what I do.
And Missy's a nurse. We know that.
Yes. Missy's a nurse.
Yes, I just got hired on working at a Catholic hospital, working in the critical care unit.
Oh Lord, I hope the rapture doesn't take place while you're there. Oh, because can you get up to the roof?
Can I get up to the roof? Yes, I will.
The Catholic
in
roof.
fact, I will be above. I will be past you whenever the rapture happens. Yes, because they are constantly like praying and all the stuff. They like go around doing blessings, and yes, I will be ahead of you, baby.
So I do have one more question. So going into the new year, what are your goals for the podcast for 2023?
We got several things lined up.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing that live outside of IHC Gatlinburg Convention Center?
I ain't gonna lie. I've seriously thought about it. For people that LaDonna, of course, this was her idea that there should be a gathering for Hillbilly Broadcast in Gatlinburg the same time as IHC. It is very tempting. Very tempting.
Well, someone who contacted me and said, seriously, we need a meetup. We need a if you're out in Indiana, say, hey, we're going to be here such and such. Let's meet up at Golden Corral. Or if you're going to be in Pigeon Forge, let's meet up at whatever. But, traveling and meeting your listeners and doing some autographs, man. Come on.
Some autographs, jeez. I would love to do stuff like the meetup thing is really, I would really like to do that. We've talked about it a few times, Miss. Maybe we should, Lord knows. I mean,
Well, let me just say this. As a nurse, I have a scheduled planner. You need to let me know what date this is. And let's put something into motion if it's supposed to happen.
I do feel like Indiana would be because there's a lot of CHM, therefore there's a lot of ex-CHM in Indiana.
It's true.
I still say Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge is the place to be.
I do like that.
Hey, I've never been there, so it would be something really cool.
We do need to put something together. As far as episodes going forward.
Oh yeah, we have a lot of episodes we're wanting to talk about.
In fact, I've got people that will get a hold of me and be like, hey, what about this one? What about that? Because we've got several lined up. It's just a matter of kind of getting through the holidays. It's going to take a bit of a darker turn, I think, the first of the year, because we're going to hit back on the sexual abuse side of it.
Yeah.
There's some people that's got some real stories that are willing to say a few things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much I can say about that, but we do got some.
There are some things. I know we had a podcast that we were wanting to do talking about how the CHM is it a cult.
Yeah,
I also have a few
got that one.
different people that are going to be giving some of their opinions about things who are currently in or have left. I wanted to touch on that because I know some people are like, you can't say that they're a cult. No, I grew up with something. And if you look up the definition of all of that, it's a real big conversation. I think that would be really good to have.
I also want to do some more kind of the profiling of stories like with Walter Bradshaw. I know we've said we've been going to do that one for a while.
Yep.
And really the purpose behind that is just to kind of show proof of don't just trust somebody without, don't just trust them blindly because there are some bad apples out there. But that's kind of what we foresee. And then Lord knows what'll blindside us.
And I know another thing too. Someone else had brought this up and it's really good. I want to also start addressing the healing side of leaving the CHM. How there is hope.
You mean put some more focus on that?
I would think it would be very good to have a little bit of a, where do we go from here? Because there's people that are talking about it, but we need to also encourage them to reach out to people like Grace Story if they need help with that and be able to refer them to Dr. Graham if they need help with their sexual abuse conversations and stuff like that.
Yeah. And there's even a police detective that's got a hold of us. I've talked with him as well. And he's like, feel free to give my number out for somebody that's a victim that might need to know what their next steps could be.
Yes.
As far as on the legal side of things. But that's kind of what we see going forward.
On a little lighter side, I would love to come back and do an episode on CHM weddings.
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
That would be interesting.
Fun and interesting, and maybe even you guys with Mariah and Kanan or other, have put it out there on your social media and just say, hey, tell us about your CHM wedding and what you were allowed to do, what you couldn't do, what you wanted to do. All of those things would be super fun, especially like around June with wedding season and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you were a witness to a lot of those weddings, right?
Yeah. I've photographed some of those things.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, boy.
Oh, I can only imagine the stories.
Train wrecks.
Oh, my. Heaven forbid you play I Tip My Hat to the Keeper of the Stars.
That is country and western.
I know. Heaven help us.
That's saved for the reception where people really kick up their heels.
Yes. Oh. Yeah, really kick up their heels. Yeah, we bust out the Coca-Cola.
Or the sparkling cider.
I can remember when I would go to a CHM wedding, when I was still CHM. You'd sit there and you'd see how her dress was. And if it was like too much down here on the shoulder, what a loose woman. Make all these assumptions about her.
No.
I shouldn't laugh. That was terrible.
We probably shouldn't be talking about this right now because this is going to be in the future.
And then my brother wants to know when you're starting a band. He wants to be the drummer.
Hey, you got a drummer? Like he's ready to go. That's all Phil needs.
Yeah, I've said for a while.
You just want a drummer.
I just need a drummer, and then I can recruit somebody. Bass guitar is not that hard to play. Sorry, Dan Downing. I don't mean.
Oh,
he's a bass player. I take it all back. Yeah. Starting a band, there is talk about coming out to Indiana to play a few shows. Nothing set in stone yet, but have them give me a call.